Welcome to Market Madness, the podcast from GiveMeSport, where every day is like deadline day.
Market Madness is the ultimate football podcast for fans who want to go beyond the headlines and into the stories that shape the transfer market. Each episode will feature high-profile guests, breaking news, features, games, and challenges.
Oh, and don't forget, you can watch the show on YouTube, Facebook, and X. Search at GiveMeSport or listen on your podcast app of your choice. Links can be found in the show notes. For more info on any of the stories discussed today, head over to GiveMeSport's website. Liv, what you got for us?
Yeah, well, it's not just me and you, Joel. As always, we are back for episode 2 and we are joined by, of course, our resident journalist, Ben Jacobs. Ben, how are you? I suppose it's getting busier and busier for you now.
Yeah, you know, it suddenly occurred to me when Joel went, every day is like deadline day. I was thinking, wait a minute, I'm not going to get any sleep as long as we continue this podcast. It's feeling crazy. So we've got lots to talk about.
Coming up today, it's a busy show. We're going to be discussing the latest on Chelsea's Christopher Nkunku's potential swap deal for Bayern Munich's Mathys Tel.
Here we go. Fabrizio Romano will be joining us to talk about several players linked with Manchester City.
Very excited about that. We're going to be talking Arsenal and Gabriel Jesus Injury.
I don't want to talk about that. We'll be hearing the thoughts of Ex-Spurs and Leicester City goalkeeper Kasey Keller on how the position between the sticks has changed.
Myself and Joel are going to battle it out in our debate challenge, and Ben is going to be the judge.
Yeah, nobody sent me a gabble yet, anyway.
Listen, just make sure you do your job right, mate, and don't forget the money that
No, there's no bribery. Don't try and pick me up early on in this show. I am totally impartial.
We also set Ben with another live question challenge, and Olivia has a surprise feel-good news story for us.
Don't worry, I'm not going to test your Bosnia and Herzegovina knowledge this time around, guys. MLS insider for GiveMeSport, Tom Bogert, will be explaining the MLS's new internal transfer market.
And if that wasn't enough, Mike Keegan from the Daily Mail will be joining us to talk about Manchester United. This is Market Madness from GiveMeSport.
Now, today's question, it was a big win for West Ham in Graham Potter's first Premier League game in charge. But I want to know who is top of West Ham's striker list. That's all we're going to say, because obviously Nicholas Fulkrug is injured, Michail Antonio is injured. So Ben, we're going to check in with you at the end of the show.
Let's look at the top story. I'm sure Liv will have her opinions. Ben, what's the latest on Chelsea's Christopher Nkunku?
Yeah, keen to hear what Liv thinks as well. So the situation is as follows, that Christopher Nkunku was part of the squad last night, but didn't come on, which was maybe a bit of a surprise considering that Chelsea were chasing the game. Now, Bayern Munich approached Chelsea for Christopher Nkunku and were told, as we revealed on GMS yesterday, that the package must be 70 million guaranteed in euros, which is just under 60 million quid, plus add-ons. Now, in that conversation, Chelsea also asked about Mathys Tel, who is a summer target that they've kept an eye on since. And now there may be some opportunism. It will not be a swap deal in the traditional sense, but two separate deals. Bayern are really pushing for Nkunku. He's already agreed terms. Chelsea want at least their money back. Remember, they paid 52 million in English pounds plus the add-ons. And this is why the valuation of Nkunku is very high. Tel is going to be difficult to get out of Bayern. And I think this is why Bayern are trying to get Nkunku separately and then leaving the Tel situation to Chelsea. They need player buy-in and Bayern want to keep Tel. And only 10 days ago, Vincent Kompany and Tel spoke, to my understanding, and Tel said that he was committed to the Bayern project. So it is possible that a player goes each way, but right now it's Bayern that are really trying to get Christopher Nkunku out of Chelsea. And I think, Liv, from your point of view, if that happens, you must feel as a fan that another striker has to come in urgently. Chelsea can't wait until the summer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing with Christopher Nkunku is I really like him, but he's not a number 9. he's the sort of player that I think you need to play off for number 9. But the way Chelsea play, Chelsea don't play with 2 strikers. They play with Nicholas Jackson, who for the large part of this season has been brilliant. I mean, even yesterday we saw the absolute best and worst, I think, of Nicholas Jackson. You know, the hold up play, the even the dribbling and just the chances he missed, though he should have got on the score sheet at least once. But he is Chelsea's number 9, and we knew that it was always going to be difficult for Christopher Nkunku to break into the side. That's where I think Mathys Tel works, because he is a number 9. And I know sometimes he plays off the left, but it does feel like if Nkunku goes to Bayern, he could play off Harry Kane, because he's not gonna be a number 9 at Bayern. And now Chelsea might have a direct replacement for Nicholas Jackson, which also means in games that Chelsea are losing, like they were yesterday, if you want to take off Jackson, you can bring on an actual number 9. And I think when Nkunku comes on and plays in that position, you just don't get the best out of him. And we haven't seen the best of him in a Chelsea shirt. And whilst Nicholas Jackson is playing well, I don't think we're ever going to be perfectly honest.
I think that's a bit harsh, you know, Liv. I think he's been really good for you guys, and he just had limited opportunities because of injuries more than anything. And like you said, the system does work well with the way, you know, your manager has it set out now. But I think he's been really good. Don't forget, I believe he's your top goal scorer as well. I know most of those,
Joel,
most of those goals are against.
I'm stopping you right there.
Yeah.
Like, no disrespect to the Conference League, but I would score the amount of goals that Christopher Nkunku scored in that competition. Like, our team is embarrassingly good for that competition. I actually feel bad for all the other teams in it, or at least the teams we've played, because our second team is way too good for that competition. And if you know, that's the reason that Christopher Nkunku is Chelsea's top scorer, because of that. Now, I like Christopher Nkunku, and I really want it to work, but from what I've seen in the Premier League, you know, he scored a brilliant goal against Bournemouth, which won us the game back earlier in the start of the season, but I haven't seen enough from him. And like you say, Joel, it's difficult. I get it. It's difficult when you're only playing a bit part, especially in the Premier League. But when Nicholas Jackson is taking his opportunities and doing what he does, it's going to be really hard for him. And he wants to play football. I understand that, but
yeah, it's not just Nicholas Jackson.
He's been okay.
It's not just Nicholas Jackson. It's what you said earlier on. He's more of a number 10. And let's be honest with you, you're not sitting down Cole Palmer. So
not like Cole Palmer sat down the goalkeeper last night.
Yeah, that was really good, by the way. Even what Jackson did before that, the move was exceptional, wasn't it? So I'm a big fan of Christopher Nkunku. I really am. But I just think ultimately you guys need a number 9, like you said, and that's it. But I think it's no slight on him. I think he gets into most Premier League teams, you know.
I think that's definitely one to keep our eye on as the transfer window gets going. Right, before we move on, Ben, I feel like you might have some breaking news for us.
Randall Kolo Muani is on his way to Turin. Late last night, there was a verbal agreement between PSG and Juventus, and also between Muani and his new club temporarily, of course, Juve, on terms too. So Muani has picked Juventus. Now, interestingly, it's only a straight loan, and that's a change of position from PSG, who in the beginning days of the window told all suitors, including Spurs and Manchester United, that they wanted a loan with an obligation. Now it's a straight loan, and Muani has picked Juventus over Tottenham. Tottenham also had an offer on the table. Manchester United never placed a formal bid. They're looking for a slightly different kind of profile, but the medical, at least the first part, should take place this afternoon. Randall Kolo Muani is off on a straight loan from PSG to Juventus.
I feel like this was one of the names that was going to be sort of on our lips until the end, because there were so many clubs in for him, but it's got done pretty soon. What I would say about Spurs is Spurs, I think, definitely want a forward, don't they? So Ben, will they be? I mean, obviously, this was only one of the first names that was linked, that Spurs were linked with. So do you think Spurs will be gutted about him going there, or not really? They just think they'll dip into the transfer market again?
I think it's a missed opportunity, especially on a straight loan, because Tottenham, like many clubs, are thinking in the strikers market and wondering whether some of their targets are not going to be available until the summer. And we are going to have this merry-go-round of movement with, for example, Victor. Joel, give the surname because I love your pronunciation of it. Victor.
Victor
plays for Sporting.
Oh, Gyökeres.
There we go. Victor Gyökeres. Love it.
But I'll be honest with you, I still can't really say it properly because I hear some people say Gyökeres and you hear some people say Gyökeres.
I thought it was Yoker. I thought it was the G was silent. I thought it was
Gyökeres. I just like Joel's version. It was the same as last week when he went Randall
Kolo Muani. That's what you were looking for. That's why I was a bit confused. I was thinking we've already done the Randall.
I want both from you, my man. I want both from you. But so look, from Spurs fans who are basically thinking, why are they talking about pronunciations instead of targets? I think people like Gyökeres or alternatively Jonathan David, who might be available for a nominal fee now, but more likely will wait for free agency. You're looking potentially at Liam Delap. And once again, I think it would take something astronomical to move him now. So Tottenham are in the conversation for some of these players. Chelsea, of course, are going to be in for Liam Delap as well. And now it's a case of, can they get anyone opportunistically, or are they going to wait until the summer?
Here we go. It is time for Fabrizio Romano to give us updates on all the big stories in the January transfer window. But Ben and Joel, over to you.
Fabrizio, honestly, very, very happy to have you here. It's been a long time. We go way back, my friend. But now you've also got a mail letter that you do on GMS website where people can come in and ask you questions, correct?
Correct. I'm always ready to answer, happy to answer. So can't wait for that.
Oh, brilliant stuff. So me and Ben, we're going to be asking the questions. Ben, I'm excited. So I'm going to go first. I've got a couple that I want to get off my chest. Firstly, the deal for Casanov. Are both Milan clubs chasing Kyle Walker?
Look, at this point, from what I heard, the club really considering this move is AC Milan. So I don't have any concrete information about Inter. My information is that AC Milan are strongly considering this possibility. They only have one spot for English players. That's why they're taking some time. We know that they are one of several clubs also interested in the situation of Marcus Rashford. But Kyle Walker is very high on Milan list. So they made contact with the player, his agents, very positive conversation from what I heard. Now there is the financial part. So about the salary, the potential contract, how much Manchester City want, or if maybe they let him go for a free transfer. So the discussion is ongoing, but my information is AC Milan. This is the club really pushing to sign Kyle Walker in January.
Brilliant stuff. And also, when it comes to Omar Mamouche's move to Man City, is that going to be going through this week or not?
I think so. I don't know if at the end of the day they will be able to complete everything this week or it will go to next week. But in terms of if the deal will happen, I think yes. I think yes, because the feeling is very positive between Man City and the Eintracht. Yesterday, Man City presented the first official proposal after positive conversations they had last week. The relationship between the two clubs is excellent. So now there is a negotiation around the price. Eintracht want 80 million. Man City hope to spend a bit less, maybe including some add-ons. So the conversation is ongoing even right now while we are recording this episode, and I'm sure that Manchester City are very optimistic also because they have an agreement with the player. He's being super professional yesterday, playing and scoring for Eintracht. So now I think it's just a matter of time, and then Omar Marmoush will be the third signing of Manchester City.
Fabrizio, Joel wants to ask you in a moment about Zubimendi. I'm going to leave the Arsenal fan to ask you those questions, but just one more on City because it comes from your own exclusive. And that's Victor Reis, Palmeiras to Manchester City. There's a verbal agreement in place. You exclusively broke that. Give us the details and how have City been able to pull this off for now rather than after the Club World Cup?
First of all, let me say that it's been really tough for Man City, this negotiation. It was not an easy deal. First of all, because there were many clubs involved from Spain, from England. Brighton 2 weeks ago had a bid rejected for 30 million. So it was a complicated one for Manchester City. They had a mission in Brazil this week with an agent working on this deal directly face-to-face with Palmeiras to reach an agreement. It was tough also because Palmeiras really wanted the player to stay till the Club World Cup in June and then leave after to join Manchester City. But now there is an agreement in place between all parties involved. Victor Reis wanted to go immediately, so he spoke to the president of Palmeiras and he confirmed his intention to leave immediately. Probably Man City paid a bit more than they expected because at the end it's going to be 35 million euros guaranteed fee. So there is no add-ons included in this package. There will be a special add-on in case they will sell the player in the future for more than 60 million euros. In that case, Palmeiras will receive 5 million euros more. But the agreement is done. The player is traveling for medical, contract signing, and all people who work in South American football guarantee that this boy is really special. So Man City are very happy with this one.
Now, Fab. All summer, I had to hear Liverpool fans talking about, oh, we've got midfielder Zubimendi, he's coming to us. But all of a sudden, there seems to be a turn. Have Arsenal won the race to sign Martin Zubimendi?
Not yet. We have to be careful with this one till the end because there is a conversation ongoing still with the agent, the player, and before we see anything, all the things signed with the player side, with his agents, we have to be careful because also Liverpool were very optimistic with Zubimendi last summer, and then the player changed his mind last minute. So we have to be really careful with that one. But Arsenal are in advanced conversations with Zubimendi. So the discussion is very positive. Mikel Arteta is involved. Remember that both players are from the same city, San Sebastian. So they have a very good relationship. They know each other. Mikel Arteta was also involved when they signed Declan Rice 2 years ago in a very complicated race with many clubs involved. So Arsenal are on it. The conversation, again, is very positive. Now it's still time to fix some details. It's not urgent because it's not a deal for January. So Arsenal want to get it done as soon as possible, but for the summer transfer window. Zubimendi is not leaving Real Sociedad mid-season. Real Sociedad have no intention to let him go. So it's a deal for the summer. Arsenal are prepared to trigger the clause or maybe pay something more than the clause to have different kind of payment terms to help in terms of financial fair play. But for sure, Arsenal are prepared to go very strong on this one. And they feel that the player is opening the doors. So the conversation is going well. Let's wait for the next steps before saying it's a done deal. But for sure, Arsenal are optimistic and confident on this one.
Now, the other one that I have for you, myself, the fan base, we're crying and waiting to hear this one. Will we be signing a striker? And I've also heard that there could be a loan move available for Vlahovic. Can you please put us into perspective because we don't know what's going on?
Yeah, look, for Vlahovic, I also see many reports, but at the moment, I can guarantee that Juventus have not received anything from Arsenal, not even a call, and same on player side at the moment, apart from the appreciation they always had for Vlahovic when he was at Fiorentina and then he joined Juventus. He's always been a player appreciated by Arsenal, by Mikel Arteta, but at the moment I'm not aware of any concrete negotiation, concrete discussion for Dusan Vlahovic. For the rest, I would say yes. The answer is yes. I think Arsenal will go for a striker. Arsenal will go for an offensive player. Let's see the skills of the player, what kind of position he can cover. But for sure, they will go for an offensive player. They are looking at the market. They are trying to keep it quiet because sometimes it's not easy in the January market to find the right player. But for sure, Arsenal will sign someone. So many injuries now, also the Gabriel Jesus situation. So for sure, Arsenal will bring in someone. But I'm not sure it's going to be Dusan Vlahovic also because at this point, Juventus have not received anything.
Let's move on, Fabrizio, to Manchester United. Marcus Rashford, big story of this window. Where do you think his most likely destination is? And what's Milan's mindset at the moment? Because under a post-Brexit rule, they can't sign both Kyle Walker and Marcus Rashford in the same window.
Yeah, for sure, Milan are still trying, but they know that it's not going to be easy. So that's why they also held discussions with Kyle Walker, because they have a feeling that this Rashford deal is not going to be easy at all also for them in terms of financials. Today, there will be a meeting between the camp of Marcus Rashford and Manchester United to discuss the conditions of this loan deal. So to understand how much eventually Manchester United want as loan fee, coverage of the salary. It's a big salary. So there are a few points to discuss before Marcus makes a decision for his next club. So we mentioned Milan, but there is also interest from more clubs around Europe, including Borussia Dortmund. They already did the Sancho deal 1 year ago. The relationship is very good, but also in this case, Dortmund can't pay his full salary. So let's see what's Manchester United plan for that. And then the player was offered to Barcelona. So keep an eye also on what Barcelona decide to do, because in this moment probably is not a priority for Barca. But he's a player appreciated internally at Barcelona. The player would love a move to Spain. So at the moment, it's not a guaranteed move or an advanced move. But Barca have been offered this possibility. They had a meeting also with the agents of Rashford. And so I think this could be one to watch in the final days of the window.
And just finally for me, Fabrizio, Kvaratskhelia is on his way to PSG. There's a verbal agreement in place. Give us the details of how quickly you think that will be finalised and formalised. And did any of the rumoured Premier League clubs, such as Chelsea or Liverpool, ever try and hijack this deal?
Not trying hijack, but they were well informed on the situation because, you know, maybe the deal can collapse. And so you have to be ready when there is a big opportunity like Kvaratskhelia on the market. So the English clubs were informed. But from what I'm told, they didn't go for that also because of the salary. The salary that Kvaratskhelia will receive at Paris Saint-Germain is a very big salary. My personal opinion, well deserved, because he was on a very small salary at Napoli. And so now he really wanted to have an important contract. So that's why the player accepted also Paris Saint-Germain immediately. It's going to be 4 or 5 times more than what he's earning at Napoli right now. now. And I think it will be finalized in hours, days, but everything is okay between the two clubs. Yesterday, there was a call between the two presidents, Nasser Al-Khelaifi, Aurelio De Laurentiis, to fix all the details of the deal. So it's going to be 70 million euros plus add-ons. Everything is okay on player side. Now it's about planning for the travel, do the medical, and then Kvaratskhelia will be 100% new PSG player.
Now, I'm hearing a lot about Napoli will be now looking for a replacement winger. Apparently, Alejandro Garnacho is on their radar. Is that true? Yes or no?
He's kind of dream signing for Napoli. He's a player they really appreciate internally. He's a player they consider perfect for the skills he has. But at the same time, they are being realistic and they know that Man United want big money for Garnacho. So it's not going to be a signing for 35 or 40 million euros. So it depends on Napoli budget. If they want to invest big money, that's the dream signing also for Antonio Conte, for the coach who is in love with Garnacho. But at this point, they are being realistic. They are considering also other options because they know that Garnacho is going to be probably too expensive. So let's see how the conversation will go. We know that in the market, especially in January, things can change in 5 minutes, but I can also tell you that they have 2-3 more options in the list. It's not only Alejandro Garnacho.
Fab. Thank you very much, man. You have blessed us with your presence again. Now, if you didn't watch the start of the show or listen on the audio devices, Fabrizio Romano has a letter, a piece that he writes online on the GiveMeSport website, and you're able to not only read it, but also ask him questions, and you will be getting answers. What a treat. Ain't that right, Ben?
Yep. Looking forward to working with Fab. He'll be on the podcast as well regularly, but I'm going to let you go, Fabrizio, because your phones probably have 1,000 messages, but always a pleasure, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, guys. Pleasure for me. See you soon. And I wait for your questions next time. Thank you.
Wait.
Ciao.
You didn't say, here we go, mate. You can't go without
You're
saying
right.
that.
You're right. Here we go. See you next days.
Yes.
Ciao, Fabrizio.
Ciao, guys. Ciao.
Right, let's turn our attention to Arsenal. Sorry, Joel. Out of the FA Cup in the third round. The fans were not happy about that, losing in a penalty shootout to Manchester United. Joel, Gabriel Jesus' injury. Or Ben, should we come to you on Gabriel Jesus' injury? Because an ACL injury is never good, and it looks like he's going to be out for a very long time. It's just really, it's disappointing timing for both the player and the club, isn't it?
Yeah, Gabriel Jesus will undergo surgery. That's the first thing to say. It's a ruptured ACL. And as a consequence, his season is unfortunately over. And we spoke about this, I think, in the first episode, where Jesus had the opportunity to compete with Ranieri to cover that right-hand side in the absence of Saka, and to potentially start leading the line instead of Kai Havertz. So you can almost argue you've lost the versatility as well as the player. And as Joel will testify, he was in tremendous form all of a sudden. I mean, it was strange, wasn't it? If Gabriel Jesus was playing Crystal Palace, he's the most prolific striker in the world. Anybody else, and he struggled to score. But you just felt that it was clicking and he was going to put a run together. So a big blow for Arsenal. And I'm sure we'll come on to the Martin Zubimendi news, which they're working on for the summer. But now they're going to have to ramp up their efforts and see if a striker is available in January. But the challenge, Joel, as we've said many times, is the two big names they want, Benjamin Sesko, Alexander Isak. Neither of them are expected to move this window.
I mean, I don't know who expected him to do so, if I'm honest with you. Slap bang, middle of the season. It's just not going to happen, is it? But going back to the Gabriel Jesus injury, the disappointment is that he's never really been able to shake this off in it since he's been at the club. I mean, knee injury, hamstring injury, knee injury, groin injury, crucial ligament. Like, that is in order by list, by the way. Injured quite a lot. When he's against Crystal Palace, you're right, Ben, he turned into prime R9. So, but now all of a sudden we feel lost because we've got Raheem Sterling that's just come back from injury and he had his first decent game. And I don't understand how Chelsea Football Club, who are paying the majority of his wages, but it still feels as if we're getting bumped. But it's just a sad situation at Arsenal at the moment, if I'm honest with you. And I'll be honest with you, I can't wait for the next season. But going back to the players that you said that could be coming in, Sesko and who's the other name, by the way? Sorry,
Alexander Isak.
Isak. Really? This isn't even transfer news, is it? Like, you've got the best informed striker in the Premier League. Newcastle see us. I've said it time and time again. they are not going to want to sell him to us for less than 150, 60 mil, because they believe they are our equals. Despite them not making it into Europe, the way they see it, they think we can catch Arsenal Football Club when it comes to the project that they have. So it's just sad times, if I'm honest with you. I don't have much to say.
Right, before we move on, Ben, have we got a little bit more breaking news?
This one's really interesting because I'm going to tell you about a goal scorer, not with Arsenal in mind, but Tom Cannon has had his loan spell at Stoke City ended by Leicester City. He's been recalled. The feeling is that the Foxes are not going to keep the 22-year-old. He scored 9 goals in the Championship for Stoke City, so is having an excellent season. And keep an eye on 3 clubs. Sheffield United are expected to make a bid for a permanent move. Sunderland hold an interest in the player. And in the last 24 hours, I can reveal as well, Everton have looked about adding more depth and goals into their squad as well. I think it more likely he's sold to a Championship club, but Everton have had a recent conversation as well. So 3 suitors. And for now, Tom Cannon is back at Leicester.
Tom Cannon, I mean, I don't know too much about him, but what I do know is that Everton are in desperate. When I say Arsenal are desperate for a striker, actually they're not. Everton are desperate for a striker. I watched their game against Bournemouth the other week, and I can't even describe to you how boring it was. Not because of Bournemouth, but because of Everton. So I think the first thing that David Moyes has to do in this transfer window is go out there and get a striker, because Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Beto are just not cutting it right now for Everton. Right, next up, myself and Joel are going to be competing against each other in a debate challenge, which don't know whether I'm nervous or excited about. I'll answer that question at the end. Remember, for all the latest stories and for everything we're talking about here on Market Madness, just head to GiveMeSport's website. The link is in the description. Right, let's move on. It's me versus Joel. This is Market Madness from GiveMeSport.
So welcome back to Market Madness. And now I have to go into unfamiliar territory and become the host, because Joel and Olivia are about to go head to head in our debate. Now, the way this works is Joel will put on his boxing gloves, as you can see. Olivia is prepped to go against him, blue and red corner and all of that. So we'll put up a topic in a moment, and then they will have 60 seconds to argue for and against that topic, followed by a 30-second ability to answer a question from each other. And then without a gabble, GiveMeSport needs to send me one, I will be judging the winner. But we encourage you to also input and send us your thoughts on who's won the debate via social media. So your topic, guys, is: should goalkeepers play out from the back? What do you make of that, first of all, before I tell you who's going to be arguing for and against?
I love the idea. It's modern day football. If you don't like it, stick to watching football in the 80s and 90s.
Oh, no, it's one of the banes of my life. Having watched Chelsea this season, Ben, you will know exactly what I'm talking about.
So we are going to tell you in a minute who is going to be for and who is going to be against this topic. But I'm going to give you a bit of a head start first. And we're going to go to an expert who will give you their perspective, just to help you crystallize your thoughts, because you don't yet know if you're going to be arguing for or against. And that expert is the former Leicester and Spurs goalkeeper, Kasey Keller. I asked him exactly the same question as our debate a little bit earlier in the week.
I was making fun of something the other day on air where they were talking about Vicario, I think, and kind of how, something about crosses and struggling and whatever else. And I just started to laugh, and I just said, what? I said, what, you mean somebody actually, you're talking about goalkeeping? I mean, and because does he take a good goal kick? I mean, because that pretty much seems to be the only criteria right now of how somebody's going to pick a goalkeeper. Don't worry about keeping the ball at the back of the net. Don't worry about catching crosses. Just how well do you pass the ball out of the back? And I think it's a very interesting direction to go, because I remember a conversation I had with Martin O'Neill. I did something stupid in a match and gave up a goal trying to do something out with my feet. And he basically said to me, he said, look, Kasey, he said, if I need you to create goal scoring chances for us, we have big, big problems. I need you to keep the ball out of the back of the net. And then we're paying 10 other people to do that job. But for whatever reason now, that's out the window. The goalkeeper's supposed to be the best player with his feet on the pitch. He's supposed to be the best player keeping the ball at the back of the net. And I truly don't understand it. And I watch mistake after mistake, giving goals and goal scoring chances away for no reason. And I guess fans like watching their teams get relegated because they won't stop just doing stupid decisions out of the back.
So you feel like rather than train the goalkeepers to be more outfield orientated, it would be better if they keep things simple and play more ball?
Well, no, I think rule number one with anything is you're supposed to work on your weaknesses, but play to your strengths. But I want to see, how much time do I have? How many of the field players are working on their goalkeeping skills? So why does the goalkeeper have to do all his goalkeeping stuff and then still be the best player with the ball at his feet? Because I played with a lot of center backs that couldn't play the ball out of the back, and they only have one thing to do, and that's to play with their feet. So explain to me why the goalkeeper has to do all of it. And I mean, and don't get me wrong, when you have a player who's naturally gifted like that, so why do your center backs not play like Messi? I mean, all they have to do is work with their feet. Surely they can figure that out and just spend time and, but no, everybody has certain skills. And I think the worst thing you can do is ask a player in any position to do something that he's really not capable of doing.
A word on Aaron Ramsdale and whether you think going to Southampton was the right move. And then a bit more broadly, if you have time, that mentality of being a number two, because when you went to Spurs, you were number two to Neil Sullivan, but you displaced him. Then you kept your place. Then Paul Robinson came in. It's a lonely place, isn't it, being a number two?
Well, it was, I mean, that's the hard part. There's only one of you, right? So, and when I came into Tottenham, I basically said, look, I'm going to come in. I'm only going to come in if you actually give me the opportunity to compete. I don't mind the decision going to Southampton at all for Ramsdale. But yeah, it is. It's tough because when decisions are made, because there was no reason why, Ramsdale didn't lose his position. I didn't lose my position to Paul Robinson. It was just a decision to go a different direction.
Kasey Keller there. Interesting thoughts on Aaron Ramsdale and setting up our debate. Should goalkeepers play out from the back? Keller against. And I can tell you now that Liv, you're going to be arguing against, which I think you will be comfortable with. And you've got a bit of help from Keller. Joel,
I don't even need to say anything.
Arguing for.
I'm ready to go. Do we have a ticker, timer, something?
We do. Joel, you're going to go first. So once again, 60 seconds each to make your opening remarks. You can then ask each other a question or make a statement, and then I'll decide the winner. So Joel, arguing for, should goalkeepers play out the back? Your time starts now.
Okay, so it's important to be able to build attacks from the back, and you can do that when your goalkeeper can play from the back. You facilitate build-up play. A goalkeeper can actually bypass certain passes, whether they be short or long, and you're able to overload the opposition coming towards you. On top of that, what you get to create numerical advantages. If you know that you're on the attack and you have an additional man, it just makes life easier, isn't it? And on top of that, if you've got a goalkeeper that can actually ping a correct pass, then guess what, baby? You can get the advantage. If you think that I'm lying, ask Jurgen Klopp, ask Pep Guardiola. If you look at the two managers that have been the most successful in the last few years, it's them. There you go, because they've done it that way. And again, I spoke about beating the press. If you're able to...
Very smooth, Joel. Even though Olivia was shaking her head.
Is that right?
Yeah, I'm not shaking my head at Joel specifically. I'm just shaking my head at the idea that goalkeepers should have to play with their feet. But
it's true though. You beat the press. I'm trying to get my extra seconds.
I was going to say you cannot finish this now. I'm doing this.
I'm just talking. I'm not talking to you, Liv or Ben. I'm talking to our listeners on audio as well. Sometimes they can't see my theatrical hands. I'm doing the Pep Guardiola hands for you guys who can't see right about now. But Liv, there you go. You do your thing.
Look at him trying to gain extra time. Right, Liv. Arguing against why goalkeepers should play out the back. Your time starts now.
I feel like I don't really need to say much because Kasey Keller has just basically told everyone the reasons why. This is the bane of my life. I've watched Chelsea too many times this season where Robert Sanchez has put his players under pressure so unnecessarily. You're a goalkeeper. You need to. I don't want you focusing on playing out from the back, playing balls in between lines. You've got, like Kasey said, you have 10 other players on the pitch to do exactly that. I want you to stand in your goal. I want you to save some shots. I want you to catch some balls. I don't mind a quick rollout or a quick pass out. Goalkeepers are footballers. They can kick the ball. They can pass left to right. You don't need... Joel mentioned Liverpool. Alisson is not that good with his feet. Ederson, yes. Alisson, no. The amount of times that Alisson has lost the ball by doing that, but redeemed himself because he's a very good...
Also very strong.
You needed just a little bit of time there because that last point was sounding all right, to be fair, but unfortunately, time ran out.
I got it in there, I think, just.
We still have extra time. So, Liv, you have the opportunity to make one more statement or ask Joel one question. And Joel, you will have 30 seconds to respond to it, then vice versa.
Okay. You're saying that you want the goalkeepers to split the lines. And why do you need a goalkeeper to do that when you have 10 other players on the pitch specifically to do that?
Easy, numerical advantage. It's always better when you have an additional player to be able to do something. You can see on most games, besides Arsenal versus Man United on the weekend, when you have an additional player, normally it gives you the advantage to be able to create angles and do certain things. And that's what it's about. When you got possession, you're able to create triangles more. You're able to split the defense. You're able to beat the press. You're able to play the ball around. And that all comes from numerical advantage. I don't even need the rest of the 30 seconds because I've just answered it. Thank you very much.
He's done a mic drop, 25 seconds and mic drop.
That really was a mic drop. I was like, thank you, Liv, for asking me that question. Thank you.
Right, Joel, your turn.
Why so many mistakes come from
Was that one for the audio listeners just to get one in just quickly? Yeah. All right, my question to you is, you're talking about you've seen Robert Sanchez not perform well because he's using his feet. Could it just be that he's not good enough? And the answer is to go out there and get a goalkeeper that can, because this is modern day football.
I don't care about modern day football, Joel. I want a goalkeeper to be a goalkeeper. I don't want a goalkeeper to play out from the back. I don't need that from my goalkeeper. So I don't care about Robert Sanchez. I don't care who we have in goal. I want a goalkeeper that is going to be focusing primarily on their job. They can give it left and right. He can give it to Levi Colwill and give it to Wesley Fofana when he's fit, and they can do that job. I do not need Robert Sanchez putting Caicedo under pressure by passing even just 5 yards. He just passes 5 yards. Don't even do that. Just go long when you need to go long. Do you know what I mean? It's about...
There we go.
You know what's funny about the whole thing? I'm just laughing. She said, pass it to Fofana. I was thinking he's going to lose it as well. So what are you going to do?
That's next week's debate. Should defenders play out from the back?
Yeah.
We'll be able to replicate it. Well, that was very even, I thought. How did you feel you fared?
Yeah, I thought that was pretty... To be fair, I thought that was pretty even as well. Yeah, I thought it was good.
I thought I won by a landslide.
Well, I've done my deliberations. I think both of you made compelling arguments, but the winner is narrowly, and not just because of the mic drop, Joel Beya.
It was the mic drop,
mate. Looks like this might be the only trophy we win this season on the Arsenal side.
Yeah, that's the closest Arsenal.
I felt sorry for him as well. I got to say that Arsenal depression was maybe a factor in giving him a little boost for the day.
Yeah, true.
I couldn't
My
even hide it.
Also is that if you have a goalkeeper that can't do it, if you persist with playing out from the back and the next generation of goalkeepers come up, they'll be used to this style and they'll get better. And then we'll see less mistakes. So a bad workman blames his tools and all of that. But I think that the goalkeepers that can do it will become more commonplace. So I was compelled by Joel's argument.
What annoys me about goalkeeper, it's not even the goalkeepers, it's the managers that are so persistent on doing it when it's quite clear that their goalkeepers can't. So it's like, and then they don't care when they make a mistake that leads to a goal because they're like, no, but I want him to do that. Next up, Ben will be chatting to Mike Keegan from the Daily Mail about Manchester United. Remember to look out for Market Madness on social media at GiveMeSport.
Ben Jacobs with you, and of course, Olivia Buzaglo and Joel Beya as well. And we move on now to a one-on-one chat with a top journalist, Mike Keegan from the Daily Mail. And we're going to be focusing on Manchester United, but also first, his beloved Oldham Athletic. Mike, great to see you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Well, it was a Happy New Year, Ben, until you mentioned Oldham Athletic.
Well, let's start with that. I know you may not want to speak about results on the field, but why are you an Oldham Athletic fan?
It's a question I often get asked, and it's not. So let's just say it's not something you choose, Ben, if you weren't from Oldham or if you didn't have a close connection to the town. So yeah, that's where I'm from. That's who my dad supported. That's who my grandparents supported. So it's kind of, it's yours through the good and the bad, and you're stuck with it. My dad passed away last year, but I used to say to him, God, because Oldham, for those of your listeners who aren't aware, you can literally have 1 foot in Oldham and 1 foot in Manchester. Like, I went to school in Manchester. I was the only Oldham fan in my year, and that was at a time when we were really good. So I used to say to my dad, could you not have just kept me in the car for another 10 minutes and taken me to City or United? But look, we had some good times. When I was a kid, we were the founder member of the Premier League. I've seen us at Wembley. We had a couple of great semi-finals against Manchester United where we got robbed on both occasions. And that's it, really. You're stuck with them. So we now have not had a promotion since 1991. That's the last time, which I think is longer than any club in England. We have the distinction that they will never be able to take away from us of being the first team to go from the Premier League out of the league itself. We've had some horrendous times. We had an owner who I won't go into too much detail about because we'll be here all day, but he was an absolute disaster.
But let's move on to Manchester United because, of course, if we remove the fan from you and go to the journalist, you're a top Manchester journalist covering both the blue and the red half. And I want to focus on Manchester United. What have you made of Ruben Amorim so far?
Really impressed. Really impressed. It feels like they've got someone in there who's grown up, who gets it, who's great with the media. He really has been. I think he was tested. And I think Gary Neville nailed it on Sky when they had some awful results pretty early in his tenure. And Neville said, there is a positive to come from this. And that's that these players have not been able to pull the wool over Ruben Amorim's eyes, as has happened. We saw it with Ten Hag. We saw it with Solskjaer. They went on that incredible run that ended with Solskjaer getting the job. Ruben Amorim was under absolutely no illusions pretty early on about what he needs to improve at Old Trafford. I think it will take a lot of time. I think they're going to need a lot of windows to fix the problem. But to be the Manchester United, and I know it's a bit of a cliche, it's Manchester United. In my opinion, it's the biggest football club in the world. So for you to be manager of that football club, you need to carry yourself in a certain way. You need to have a certain charisma. And I think and obviously it's very early, but the early signs are that Ruben Amorim is the man for this job. And it's a big job.
And of course, Ruben Amorim is seemingly driving the situation regarding Marcus Rashford. So we'll turn our attention to matters on the field. What's your latest understanding of Marcus Rashford's future?
Yeah, it's a tricky one, Ben. The latest I'm told is that, and obviously the disclaimer is that these things can change pretty quickly, but expect this one to run deep into the transfer window. It won't surprise anyone to know that the wages are a stumbling block. We're talking around £350,000 a week, and it's quite a complex situation. So United obviously don't want him to go to another club in England at this stage because they are wary of the optics of how that would look if he was to go there and do well. Jesse Lingard is fresh in the memory. He's in South Korea now, but he went to West Ham and did well there and had people questioning the wisdom of United's decision to allow him to go. So there's the geography, for want of a better word, and the logistics, I suppose, of to where United are comfortable with him going. On the wages front, it's finding that agreement. So my understanding is that United are not guiding in conversations how much they will accept to allow him to go out of the door until the end of the season, which is in their interests. It's down to clubs to come to them with a proposal, and then they'll go away and see whether it's something that works for them and for the player. I think it gets lost a little bit as well that this is a guy who is synonymous with Manchester United. And I think the current situation, it's important not to let that cloud the whole picture. So Marcus Rashford has been very well paid, but he's also been a great servant for Manchester United. He has had periods of success. He is a local boy. He has come through the academy. He's a United fan. He really should be represent everything that is right about Manchester United. And there are good people at that football club. And there's also an element in the background that this has to be done correctly. So whether you agree with the interview that he carried out recently, the way that some people perceive him to have conducted himself, he is still part of the Manchester United family. And there is a desire to do the right thing by the player. But obviously, as we've seen, under the current regime at Manchester United, the performance of the first team comes first. So going back to what I said at the start, the latest information I'm getting is that this may well run deep into the transfer window.
And just finally, Mike, let's move our attention to the blue side of Manchester. What do you think has gone wrong for Man City this season? And is Pep Guardiola, having signed a new deal, under any kind of pressure heading towards the end of the season? Could we see, despite that new deal, still a summer departure if it just feels like it's not working between all parties?
I mean, it's the Premier League and they're the 4 times in a row champions, so there'll always be an element of pressure. But what I would say with Pep Guardiola, given the standing that he is held in at Manchester City, quite rightly, given the success that he's brought to the club, I would be absolutely amazed if him leaving Manchester City is anything other than his own decision. So if he looks at it and thinks, you know what, this we've had a great run. I know I signed the new contract, but I think it's for everyone's interest that we freshen things up and somebody else comes in and I'm going. And he goes with a fanfare that he quite rightly deserves. That I can only imagine will be the only way it plays out. I can't see Man City turning around and saying to Pep, you're going to have to go, this isn't working. I don't see that. I think it's a fascinating one because we know that it's very difficult in the Premier League, given the money that everybody has, to create a period of sustained success. There's a reason why City were the first to become 4 in a row champions. I think I wouldn't like to say that there's a complacency because he knows his players, he trusts his players, but certainly now you're looking back at that summer window and you're thinking, did we do enough business? I think the age of the squad in certain areas is catching up with them. I think, the Kyle Walker situation is fascinating. He's on 93 England caps. He desperately wants to get to 100 England caps, and he's clearly decided that isn't going to happen at Manchester City. And you can't blame him because we know that Pep is looking at bringing in defensive reinforcements, and we're already in a position where Walker's struggling to make the first 11. So I think it all boils down to, does Pep have the appetite for a rebuild at this stage? Personally, from a very selfish point of view, I'd have preferred him to have left at the end of the season and taken the England job, because if you're Pep, you can then turn around and if he's successful with England, say, I have completed football. I am the greatest manager that there has ever been. I've done it in Spain. I've done it in Germany. I've done it in England, but that nobody's done it ever before with Manchester City. And now, guess what? To put the cherry on the icing on top of the cake, I've even won a major tournament for England. And that hasn't happened. It's not a perfect world. It's a fascinating one. Just little things like the game at Brentford. They go 2-0 up, Foden scores twice, and you think, right, they're back on track now. And then it's not surprising that Brentford come back and equalise all of a sudden. So maybe the appetite is there for Pep. Maybe he looks at this and thinks, you know what, this stokes the fires again. Because he often spoke about how difficult it was to kind of motivate his players to repeat success with success. So now that success isn't there, maybe he's looking at that and thinking this actually makes it easier to motivate the players. And as we are aware, they are looking at doing business in this window. So maybe at the end of the window, it looks like a Manchester City that's had some new life injected into it.
Mike Keegan there, sports news correspondent for the Daily Mail. He's dropping exclusives by the second or the minute. So make sure that you follow him, and his personal handle as well on X is Mike Keegan _DM, which stands for Daily Mail. So check out his content on the Daily Mail website and on all platforms. And of course, right here as well on Market Madness.
Thank you for that, Ben and Mike. Remember, you can follow Mike Keegan on X. His @ is @MikeKeegan_DM or across the Daily Mail's platforms.
Hang on a minute. Do we have some more breaking news coming in, Ben? Can you let us know?
Jhon Duran, not for sale, according to my Aston Villa sources. Now, some will say there's always an asking price. And I can tell you that if they were to change their mind, Aston Villa, they would want £85 million in January. The interest is firm from PSG in particular. So that's one to keep an eye on. Chelsea have not reignited anything as far as January is concerned, but PSG would like to sign Jhon Duran, and ideally right now, along with, of course, Kvaratskhelia, who is going to join for sure from Napoli. An agreement is in place and that medical will take place this week. But PSG have made an inquiry about Jhon Duran and they've been told not for sale. And then my sources have added the only way that Villa are going to change their mind is if PSG or any other club drop 85 million. And to put this into context, over the summer, Chelsea and West Ham were looking at Duran for 40 million. So in the last few months, his price has more than doubled.
Now we have a little message from MLS insider for GiveMeSport, Tom Bogert, and he explains the introduction of a new internal transfer market in the MLS.
Major League Soccer introduced a new cash trade internal market. That in real football terms means just a regular transfer market in which MLS clubs can buy players from other MLS club teams for real money. This shouldn't sound new, but it is in Major League Soccer because previously until today, MLS clubs were only allowed to acquire other players within the league using different mechanisms from the league. So there's something called allocation money. Allocation money is an extension of the salary cap. It is not real money. You cannot take it to the bank or do anything with it really other than stretch your MLS salary cap. So the way that this works is there are trades for big players on allocation money. Jesus Ferreira, U.S. international, was just traded for allocation money. Leo Campana, a Ecuador international, was just traded for allocation money. But the top players in MLS, there isn't enough allocation money to go around that would make it make sense for a team to sell a player within the league because there are players who are $10 million investments who would be sold abroad for $10 to $15 million. And it's just not worth it to try to get any semblance of allocation money when you could instead get $10 or $15 million. So in real terms, because I know that this is boring and I sound a little bit like a lawyer, or that I'm like reading the terms and conditions off of an Apple iPhone page. So in real terms, there's a player called Evander for the Portland Timbers. He's an absolute star. He's a Brazilian. He played in Europe. He was the Europa League leader in assists during the group stage before he was acquired by the Portland Timbers. At the end of last season, he went in the locker room, told media, pretty much went on a rant about that he wanted to leave. He went on Twitter. He did that. He posted a several tweet thread talking about how he wanted to leave. In the past, wanting to leave means that player is absolutely leaving the league. He's either going back to Europe or Brazil. Now, there is a way for him to stay in MLS. Another MLS team could offer the Portland Timbers $10 or $15 million or whatever the price tag is going to be for him to stay in the league. So this rule really impacts the best players in MLS as a way to keep them in MLS and as a way to slowly but surely, maybe just maybe, look like the rest of the world in terms of their internal transfer system. You think about Bayern Munich buys most of the best player from the Bundesliga. Barcelona and Real Madrid buy a lot of the best players from La Liga. And you kind of go on down the list, like PSG in France. They buy a lot of the best players coming through France. In MLS, I think now this opens the door for teams like Atlanta United, teams like Inter Miami, teams like LAFC, LA Galaxy, the ones with the most money and the most ambition to go get big players from other teams within the league, give them new contracts, pay the team that allows them to stay in the league. So I think this is good. This increases spending across the board. There were a couple other updates in the rules here, is one of which is that teams may buy out 2 players per season. Again, this sounds like a foreign concept, probably talking to people in Europe that have no idea the MLS mechanisms and the roster rules. That just means that you can remove a player from your salary cap at only cost out of your pocket. So you still pay that player the contract, but they don't count against the salary cap. And that is going to be very, very big for teams that want to spend money and don't care if they get a couple signings wrong. If they can just get a redo and get rid of players on bad contracts, they will be able to spend more money. So all in all, the point is that this is going to help MLS teams spend more money and keep stars in the league and hopefully attract some new ones. So I think that this is all good for Major League Soccer. Joel, Olivia, Ben, hope you guys are well. I'm assuming I'm only allowed back for this one question because I lost to Ben in our last Transfer Madness segment of Rapid Fire. I'm looking to get back at that. I've been in the lab. I've been preparing on the training ground, just waiting for my next opportunity. So bring me back on, and Ben, I'm going to beat you.
Wow, fighting talk.
Fighting talk.
Look, I like him.
Almost, but I like it.
I really like him. What a guy.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Tom. Now, don't forget, everyone watching and listening, Tom has written an article on GiveMeSport all about this. So head over to the website for more information. Now, as we approach the end of the show, it's time for another surprise news story from Olivia. Last week, we were talking about teams in Bosnia to learn about who had sacked their entire playing staff. Liv, what have you got for us this week?
Yeah, we're not going to Bosnia and Herzegovina, Joel, this time. We're actually going to San Pedro prison. This is a feel-good story. This is a feel-good story. So let me just explain. So one of Bolivia's top football clubs is called the Strongest FC, by the way. I mean, unreal name for a football club. But anyway, and they organize a Fiesta del Chocolate. I reckon that sounds better in like a South American Fiesta del Chocolate, not Fiesta del Chocolate. But anyway, and they do this to raise funds and gifts for children living in the San Pedro prison in La Paz. Now, this is a notorious prison where women live and children under the age of 6 can live with their parents there. Obviously, it's in poor conditions. But obviously it's better than going into the care system. So the chocolate party aims to bring joy and relief to these children, especially around Christmas time. And it involves fans and the communities donating toys, clothes, money. The players get involved as well. And it's just like creating a really nice festive period for those children that are cared for. And it just raises awareness about the struggles of incarcerated children whilst giving them a chance to experience Christmas and have like a joyful time. A bit more of a feel-good story. What do we think of the Fiesta del Chocolate?
Wow, everyone's talking about my pronunciations. Where did that come from?
Well, I feel like it sounds better with like a South American, Fiesta del Chocolate just doesn't have the same ring to it, does it?
No, it's a nice story. I really like that. I thought when you said prison, I thought, where are we going with this? But you really made it a nice story. So thank you.
Right, let's move on from that feel-good story to the final part of the show, because if you remember, right at the start, we gave Ben a question. So let's see if he has successfully answered the question put to him by producer Nick. Now, that question this episode was, who is top of West Ham's striker list? Ben, over to you.
Yeah, there's a few options. So we've already mentioned Jhon Duran. I won't repeat myself. That's the dream target, but not top of the list for this month because, as we've already reported, not possible. Villa don't think he's for sale, 85 million or more. And that leaves 2 candidates to keep an eye on. Taiwo Awoniyi at Nottingham Forest, top of the list at the moment. And keep an eye also on Eli Wahi as well, who is at Olympique Marseille. Now, Wahi would be somebody that West Ham would move on if a loan is sanctioned, possibly with an option. But sources exclusively tell GiveMeSport that only a permanent sale is possible. So West Ham are going to have to pay up. There'll be no straight or dry loan for Eli Wahi. So Duran maybe for the summer, but PSG are the main team pushing. And then Awoniyi and Wahi are the 2 to watch for West Ham at the moment for January, and they do desperately need a striker.
That actually makes sense because, you actually forget what Awoniyi actually did for Nottingham Forest a couple of seasons ago because Chris Wood has just come in and absolutely blazed it up. So I think that would be a very, very good signing for them. Good shout.
I think so, yeah. Just to add as well briefly, Evan Ferguson would have made the list, but unfortunately injury, plus the fact that Brighton haven't actually sanctioned anything, even if he was fit. But Ferguson was another name West Ham reached out to, but now he's injured. It's unlikely that he's going to go to West Ham.
Yeah, I also think that Forest will probably want to find a replacement for Awoniyi before they let him go, because he has made a good few appearances off the bench this season, even though Chris is there. Chris Wood, even though Chris Wood is their number 1, number 9. So yeah, I think they'd have to find a replacement before they let him go.
For sure, for sure. Anyway, look, that takes us to the end of the show. I want to say thank you for tuning in. Catch you next week, and we'll be talking about the biggest football transfer stories. The Journalist Quickfire Mailbag Challenge will be back. We'll give Ben another live question task, and we will be joined by some more guests. You can catch us on socials, all over YouTube, audio, X, the whole lot, and search at GiveMeSport, or you can listen on the podcast app of your choice. So that's it. Liv, anything else?
Yeah, just for more info on any of the stories we've discussed, and there's plenty more as well, you can head to givemesport.com, and we will see you next time here on Market Madness.